3, 2.
I got everybody pregnant with Barry Katz and semen.
I'm not comfortable with the tone this is taking.
If you're undeniable, you will not be denied.
If you want to be successful in show business, you get yourself a Jew white manager like Barry Katz.
Being a manager is just turning no's into yeses.
Creating holy shit moments. Undeniable.
You're fucking firing me up, Katz.
I love this man.
Is there anything else I should know?
You're on. What? I'm on the air.
Barry Katz, back in the house.
Let's do this.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Industry Standard with me, Barry Katz. This is an unusual day for me. This is the first time in over a decade that I have ever done an episode alone. And people have been asking me to do it alone for a long time, and I haven't done it, which shows that I'm either stubborn or set in my ways or whatever. But the more I talk to people, the more I interact with people, the more I engage people on the blueprint for success, it's quite evident that people have a lot of interest in my opinion. And whether anyone agrees with my opinion or not, in my entire career, I've only gotten paid for one thing. And that's my opinion. So what I decided to do today, which I'm excited about, is answer a bunch of questions that people have given me. I haven't really looked at these questions. They were assembled for me. I don't really know the order or how many I'm going to get through in the hour, but one of my favorite things about life is the unknown. And so today it'll be the unknown. And so if you want to reach me, you can do so at Barry Katz at Instagram or Twitter X or at barrykatz.com. And if you want to watch any of these fabulous interviews and podcasts from Industry Standard, you can do so by going to my YouTube channel and subscribing, and you can watch whatever you want. So without further ado, I'm going to start answering some questions. First question is from Amy D., located in Colorado, in the Colorado Springs, Denver area. Her question is there anything besides not being an asshole and persistent hard work that you've noticed the greatest comedians have in common? Thank you, Amy. I think one of the things that I've noticed the most about artists is the dedication to the craft, the micromanaging of every aspect of every routine they do, even when it doesn't feel that way. So there's those people who just, I think when you watch somebody like Jerry Seinfeld and he's writing things down on a legal pad, all the way to, if we take that documentary that I was in, comedian Orny Adams, who constantly is adjusting little pieces of the routines to make sure everything works the best way and keeps trying it over and over again. So that's one of the most important things I feel works for comedians. The second thing is removing self-doubt from your life. The greatest comedians in the world are confident. They're powerful. When you watch them on stage, it's like there's a new leader and sheriff in town, and it's them. And they figure out a way to go on stage and not only make you feel comfortable and safe, but they lead you to a place that they want you to go, which is ultimate killing for a comedian. hanging on every word. And the last thing I'd say I notice more than anything else, besides obviously original style and a unique take on the world that nobody else has, is the fact the greatest comedians in the world use incredible phraseology and words that are completely original that you would never hear normally. I remember when I first saw a comedian that I represented named Nick DiPaolo. He had this bit that he did that summed it all up. He said, I went to a place to get a sandwich, and I could tell it was going to be a bad day. The guy walked out of the back with rubber gloves and a plunger in his hand and said, can I help you? I said, you can start by boiling your hands. I don't understand. What do you mean boiling my hands? Wash them like you're sterilizing surgical tools. I don't want to get the rhino virus in my tuna. So in a span of 30 seconds, the guy had 3 phrases that you would never hear or hear very infrequently. And one of the things that you should watch to understand what I'm talking about, watch the late Norm Macdonald's first Letterman set, and you'll see immediately. You can even write down how many words and how many phrases and how many original premises there are. And even a person who counts in a way that's incorrect would get at least 20 or 25 out of that 5-minute set. So that's the answer to that question. Next up, I have Tao Du from Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. He has a lot of questions on here, so I got to pick one. Let's see. Is hosting a stand-up show a must to have the skills early on or at all? Or can someone survive without knowing how to host? In the Vietnamese scene, sometimes a host can be a different person than an opener and is often a more experienced act. Even though I want to work on that, it doesn't seem to come naturally for me. Kind of contradicts myself when I ask about starting a comedy room, but still, I'd love the answer. Okay, Tao, and I hope I pronounce your name properly because I'm not good at that. I think one of the most important things that you always want to do, not only in the entertainment business and comedy, is you want to master as many skills as you can. I think the thing to understand is that if you look at yourself like a car, an 8-cylinder engine, there's all those cylinders that you want to use for your car to be at the peak performance, function the greatest, and have the most ability to be fast and efficient and can handle everything that the road throws to it. And it's important to learn as many skills as possible. A friend of mine who does a podcast who I love, Jordan Harbinger, he has a phrase that he uses. It's called skill stacking. And even if you're not good at hosting, host. In Boston, where I started, the host was the biggest act on the show. I mean, Steve Sweeney was the biggest comedian in Boston. He used to sell out 3 shows on Friday night, 400 people each show, 1,200 people on a Friday night. And he would host every show. But other shows, when you go to like the Improvs or the Funny Bones or wherever you go, the host is the lowest person on the totem pole. But it's always important to learn every skill, even if it contradicts how you do your comedy or whatever. It's great to figure out how to come out cold and be able to kill a crowd. it's great to come out and figure out how to introduce people the right way. So in the future, if you're hosting an award show for a corporate that you did, a corporate gig, or maybe you get asked in the future to host a television special, you've learned the chops early on, and it's really important for you. So always learn everything, including how to write a script for television, how to write a movie, how to set up a podcast, how to write a book proposal, how to put a pitch deck together. Everything you can imagine, master it as best you can. It can't hurt you. It can only help you. All right. Next question. It's from Eddie Layfield. I believe he's in New York City. He writes, I want to host a writer's room for comedians in New York City. How are these kind of rooms run in other cities, like LA, for example? Thanks, Eddie. Writers' rooms are different all over. That's like saying, how are comedy shows different in New York City than they are in LA? Or how it is in other countries. It's like everybody does things a certain way, and there's no right or wrong answer. What I like to do in a writer's room is different from what a lot of people like to do. And it's also similar to what a lot of people like to do. But I think the most important thing I like to have first, and it doesn't even seem like it would be the most important thing, is a person documenting everything in the room, like a writer's assistant. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, now with the technology of being able to video record things and then go to a program like Otter AI and transcribe it, why would I need a writer's assistant? But there's something about a human being in the room that's smart, can document things, put things together, emphasize things. It really helps. It just really helps make things smooth and catches things that maybe the technology won't catch. And so that's the first thing I like to have. The second thing is I like to put together a room with a bunch of different kinds of voices. I don't want the same kind of tone around a writer's room if I'm working on something to punch up a screenplay or a television project that's been written, or simply people getting together to figure out ideas where they're throwing them back and forth and each person throws out their routine and people give them tags and things that are happening. I always like to have different kinds of people in the room, which is against what a lot of people like to do. Some people like to have the same tone of comedians that are like the tone of their film or their TV show. I like to have a range of writers in there because you never know when they're going to see something in a different light and a different perspective that another person isn't. And when you're in a writer's room, you don't have to use everything. It's not important. It doesn't matter. Like, if you look at something like a show like Jimmy Kimmel, okay? I mean, I don't know how many writers he has in there. Maybe he has 25 writers in the room. They're writing like at least 100 jokes a day for the monologue alone. And what do you think? They get 100 on? What do you think they get 50 on? No, he's only doing at best maybe 20 jokes in a 5-minute monologue. So if you're a writer there and you get one joke on, you're like celebrating with champagne. You do get 2 jokes on, you're doing a handstand. You get 3 jokes on, you're partying and you're so excited because it's unprecedented. And that's the way it is. It's like material goes out there And it doesn't all have to be great. Same in music. My son is a music producer, my son Zion. He's in a wonderful, wonderful business, but many people would say it's a bad business. I mean, all he has to do in his entire career is come up with one tune that is exciting and what the world expresses is great, and it's over. Like one of the people he works with just launched a song and it was #1 in the world. And he has songs with this person. My son's 19, but he didn't do that song with him. He's close, but once he gets one, it's all over. And all the others, does it matter? It helps train you to get to the point where you're going. So in a writer's room, same thing. You're throwing out ideas. Not all of them are going to be extraordinary, but all it takes is one here and one there, and it improves what you're working on tremendously in any capacity. All right. I hope that answered your question. All right, next question is from Sean Decker in Los Angeles. With the current changes in Hollywood and the studio still trying to figure out streaming versus networks and movies direct to consumers versus theaters, where do you see the future of the industry, and how would you advise actors and writers to adjust how we approach our craft to be successful? I always look at it this way. The first thing that's the most important thing is that, you still have to be undeniable in everything you do. You still have to blow people away. You still have to crush people with whatever you're doing. And there's no reason to think in whatever format you're in that changes. I remember Magic Johnson telling me something. I asked him, how has he been so successful in every single thing he's done, from sports to his personal life to his business ventures? And he said something fascinating. He said, 2 words is what I live by. I said, what are the 2 words? He said, over deliver. And at the end of the day, no matter how anything changes, if your work is undeniable, then there's no chance that if you get it out there that people are not going to see how great you are. So the changes definitely affect a lot of people. It's tougher out there. But actors are still auditioning against other actors. Writers are still up against other writers. First-time creators on YouTube are up against other things as well. And that's the way it always is. And so you first have to create work that creates a problem. And when I say it creates a problem, it creates a situation where it fucks people up. They have to change direction. They don't know how to do things that they probably were going to do before. When Brad Garrett auditioned for Everybody Loves Raymond, they were looking for a Paul Giamatti type. And Brad went in and auditioned. He's 6'8". I don't know what he is. He didn't look anything what they wanted him to look like. But he was undeniable. He killed it. And there was no disputing it. He was just great. And that's the way it is. So first things first, undeniable. Second thing I would say, you have the resources to create your own stuff. There's no reason why you can't create your own things. It's easy these days. You have all the technology. It can be done cheap. And you create content and put it up on your YouTube channel that you create or your social media platforms. And the world lets you know if you're great or you're not great. That's the way it works. The world will tell you. So regardless of anything that the world throws at you, you have the opportunity to go out there and change what the world has to say about you and how you're going to make it to the next level. So don't worry about anything except being extraordinary and the best representation of yourself. And I can guarantee you, you'll rise hugely. Next question comes from Rob Hislop in Sydney, Australia. And this is his question. When should you start thinking about putting on a show at a comedy festival or a fringe festival? Is it better to attempt to force yourself into the deep end or to be over-prepared? Or is a split bill a safer bet? You know, that's a great question. And this past year, one of the people in the Blueprint, Natalie Pearl, went to Edinburgh, and she thought that she was not as prepared as she should be. She probably thought her show was not as strong as maybe others could be. And there were 3,800 shows, I believe, in Edinburgh last year. And right out of the gate, her show was reviewed with 5 stars, and it became a top 5 show in the festival. And so I think if she were here next to me, her answer to the question would be, sometimes you have self-doubt and you're thinking to yourself like, okay, am I going to be good enough? What's going to happen? How could it happen? And you tend to doubt yourself whether your show is good enough to make an impact. And I know that she did, but she pushed herself through it and went out there and was wildly successful. And this is what's odd about the business. She did take a chance. She did bet on herself. And there was a chance that her show might not get recognized. But it did. And could her show have been more ready? Could she have rehearsed it more? Could she have practiced it more? Could she have done a lot more to be as ready as possible? Probably. But she went out there anyway. She pushed herself, and it worked for her. Another person, it might not work. And I'll say this despite what I'm saying about Natalie, is that it's never going to hurt you to be over-prepared. Anthony Hopkins reads a script 100 times before he goes on the set. How can that hurt you? How can it hurt you to be over-prepared? It will never, ever hurt you. I'll never forget reading about Larry Bird after every game for the Boston Celtics. He would go out after the game and shoot free throws. And he had a pact with himself that he had to make 100 free throws in a row before he let himself go home. So he could hit 99 in a row and clang the 100th one, and you have to start all over again. Clearly that didn't hurt him in his career. So I think that's the answer to that. And but it never hurts to fight off your insecurity and move forward. And while you're moving forward, just keep preparing. In terms of split bills, I'm never a fan of split bills to start or anything of that nature, because you're trying to get your brand out there and your name out there. And when you split a bill with somebody else, they're getting their brand out there too. And you want the focus to be on yourself. Later on in your career, when you've already made it and you've done well, you can split the bill with anybody. You know, look at Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura, Dave Attell, and Jeff Ross bumping mics, and that's cool. So I hope that answers your question, Rob. Thank you so much. Next question is from Greg Owens in Rochester, New York area. Can you describe the best way to submit to clubs and bookers that I have zero connection to? In other words, how should a comedian package themselves, their product? Should it be in an email, or is there a better way to make contact? Thanks, Greg. I think the most important thing in this crazy business is you have to pretend that you're the person that you're sending the package to, or you're sending the email to. You have to pretend that you're the person who's getting 1,000 submissions. And what is it about your submission that's going to make them open it, get excited about it, and book you? And that's the greatest advice that I could ever give anybody. Think about it. Pretend you own your own comedy club. You're getting 500 submissions from all over. You're getting texts. You're getting emails. You're getting letters. You're getting FedExes. You're getting videos sent to you. You're getting long letters, short letters, funny letters. You're getting gifts. At the end of the day, what are you going to notice, and what's going to make you book a person at your establishment? How do you break through the clutter to you? And if you think about what you do and to hire somebody, what they'd have to do to get to you, to get you to smile, to get you to laugh, to get you to pick up the phone or even text them or email them, hey, I watched your stuff. Spectacular. I'd love to book you. And obviously, you have to have an act that has original premises and original words and original concepts, because no matter how much you get the person's attention, you still have to have the great content. And, you know, I remember when I was working with Dane Cook, he said this quote that I'll never forget. He said, I'm going to make a noise so loud, Hollywood will have to listen. And that's what you should do for everything you're submitting for. Put yourself in the shoes of the gatekeeper. All right, next question is from Melissa Walton, originally from the Detroit, Michigan area, now in Los Angeles. In your opinion, having observed a lifetime of comedic acts, how does scripted comedy rate versus improv, generally speaking? It seems like improv might prey on the audience more, but every audience is different. But overall, do you believe that the audience, more often than not, likes to be involved in an act or doesn't like to be involved? Thanks, Melissa. Comedy is cyclical. And as we found with several comedians who shall remain nameless, they rely on crowd work. In my opinion, crowd work can make you a lot of money, but it will never garner you the respect that you deserve as a comedian, because content is key. You're always going to remember Chappelle's crack baby bit. You're not going to remember the comedian that says, hey, what do you do, Herb? I'm a rocket scientist. Oh, that's funny. You look like an accountant. Or, you know, whatever it might be. Making up jokes as they go with audience members is just, it's not retainable. You know, you recite the 7 words that Carlin said, the 7 dirty words. We all remember those things. We don't remember a comedian talking to the audience. That's not going to get you to the promised land and the Mount Rushmore of comedy. But it can make you a lot of money if the audience rallies around it, as we've seen in the past few years. But even the people that do the crowd work, they'll be the first to tell you that they want to be respected for the routines they have, not for the crowd work that they work with. And yes, for some reason, audiences love to be engaged. They love to see people get shit on. They love it, whether it's a roast or it's unplanned with a heckler. I mean, one of the most fascinating things that I found in doing this industry standard podcast is that I interviewed the guy who created Yonder, the pouches where they give you the phone-free experience. And one of their biggest clients is Bill Burr. They did the Fenway Park concert. And the ironic thing about it is, if Bill Burr was using the technology in Philadelphia when he got booed off the stage and that one person filming showed him come back and roast the city of Philadelphia, that was what launched his career in the biggest way possible. And if he had that technology back then, his career would be going totally differently. So I've always found that improv doesn't really work on television, and but stand-up does. But improv works very well live, and it's very well accepted and loved. But at the end of the day, what's going to make you remembered and what's going to put you on that Mount Rushmore of comedy is the great routines that everyone remembers. Next question is from Mark Barrett from Buffalo, New York. In Buffalo, the comedy is all DIY, do it yourself. If it wasn't, there would be no stage time. With that said, badly produced shows are everywhere. Do you take any stage time or pick and choose shows that are better produced? You have to practice your craft over and over again. Doesn't matter if it's a car accident, a shitty open mic, or the best rooms possible. As long as you're rehearsing your act over and over again, it's not going to hurt you. Now, I know what you're saying. If a room is badly produced, the people come and they see you do badly in a show where the television is on playing the hockey game, and in the middle of your act, when the team scores, they're applauding. I understand it. These are hell gigs. But hell gigs make you stronger. And the stronger you get from the hell gigs, then you work the better produced shows, you do really well. And then you go off and you find your own room and you produce the greatest show that could possibly be produced in your area. What stops you from doing that in Buffalo? If everything's shit, just go out and find your own room, produce it in an extraordinary way, and be the most respected game in town. All right. This is the last question of the day from Tony Murdoch in Cancun, Mexico. Barry, realistically, what percentage of talent in the industry is creative art versus mental illness? Personally, I produced my own extraordinary creative art, but I've also experienced years ago hiding behind the mask of a character playing the role of disassociation, good enough for the Academy Awards prior to my spiritual awakening and healings of past trauma. With the recent passing of our dear friend Harry Arton, who is also one of the Blueprint members, and your experience in the industry, Is there a way to better identify and help those whose art is actually a cry for help? Tony, that's a great question. And sadly, I've known a tremendous amount of people who've taken their own life in this crazy business. And it's really challenging. And your question is very valid. And I think there's a lot of people in this business who suffer from mental illness. In my experience, it could even be as many as 10% or 25% people who suffer from depression or issues relating to it. And the sad part about the comedy business is what makes people great is their pain and how they turn it into funny, and the challenges and things that have happened in their life that they've overcome that make them become funny and want to reach out and share their stories to audiences that give them that recognition and that positive feedback. And I think comedy is helpful for a lot of people who suffer. And I think it's disguised a lot of times in many different ways. Look, Gary Gulman had a tremendous special called The Big Depression on HBO. I mean, if you haven't seen it, you got to see it. It's incredible. However, if you were to watch, let's say, what I consider to be one of the most incredible short sets in television, his Conan O'Brien set, where he talks about the abbreviations and how they came about for states, you would have no idea that he's hiding behind anything or suffering or anything he's going through. All you see is greatness, and there's nothing in there that's a mask for anything. It's just wildly creative, extraordinary content with brilliant words and phrases and concepts, and really special. So the answer with mental illness is very complicated, because it's a disease that just needs regulation. It needs some kind of medication, whether homeopathic or regular Western medicine, or sometimes it just needs attention in a different way. It's like, if you're born and you can't see well, you wear glasses. And if you have or suffer from depression or mental illness, you got to address it. And we can't be in control of everybody and how they address it. But I do believe that stand-up is very therapeutic for people who are suffering, because it puts you into a situation where you're able to channel your energy into something that's creative, that's intellectual, that stimulates your mind, and gives you amazing feedback immediately about how you're doing and what's going on. Yes, there's a come down after you get off stage and you kill, or you get a standing ovation. Yeah, it's like doing drugs, but it's something that I think some of the greatest comedians in the world have suffered from depression and are geniuses and brilliant. And I don't think there's any answer to how to recognize it all the time or how to save people all the time, because ultimately, they have to save themselves. And those voices in their head can get stronger and stronger at any time, and people can take their own lives. I remember I met with Richard Jeni a week before he took his life. Had a great meeting with him. Yeah, did I know he suffered from depression and issues? Yeah. But never in my wildest dreams did I think that he'd take his own life. Same with my friend Harry Arton. You know, a really creative guy trying to find his place and trying to find his original voice. And sometimes it doesn't come as quickly as you want it to. And you feel like you lose your way and you lose all your options for the future. And you feel hopeless and helpless. And is there a way to identify how to stop somebody when they're at that point? I'm not a professional. You know, I don't know. Sometimes some of the most down people I've known come back so strong with such a vengeance and become so extraordinary and get such huge audiences. And others don't. And I've experienced people who took their own lives that I was just shocked that they did. And there's people that didn't and persevered that I was even more shocked that they didn't. So the biggest thing we can all do is just be as supportive as we can for people who suffer. Let them know we're there for them, and let them know that if they're ever at their lowest point, that we're there for them and they can feel safe, and that we'll help them get over that difficult situation. As my mother always told me, it's always darkest before the dawn. Thank you, everybody. This has been really interesting answering these questions. I'm really happy. I like it a lot. I think this is something we probably should do more of. And I'm grateful to all of you for all these questions, and I hope you enjoyed this. And as always, this is another episode of Industry Standard. And have a great, great week, a great month, and a great year.